This is called Brave New Church. It's a ministry specific to Southeastern Pennsylvania Synod, although the conversation partners we're hoping will be involved in it are not limited to our synod. So share it far and wide. Invite people to take a look. It's at bravenewchurch.org is where the website is. There's a Facebook group for it, just titled Brave New Church, and there's many other elements that I'll tell you a little bit about. But this is something unique, as far as I'm aware, in the church, and not just the Lutheran Church. This model of collaboratively as a synod or as a group of congregations and lay people and clergy and churchgoers, and I'm hoping young people and other ages who are not active churchgoers can have this conversation in an open and honest and hopefully non-judgmental way. Because that's what has to happen before we can get anywhere. We have to understand the problem, but we also have to be able to brainstorm and innovate solutions. So that's one of the big goals of this new ministry, is to create space for the kinds of conversations we need to have to address the question of what it means to be the church in this brave new world that we live in today. We all want to encourage you to share this, to utilize it in whatever ways are helpful to you, and also, and I can give you my information later, it's on the website for here and the Synod website, but I want your feedback as well. What's helpful, what's useful, what do you want more of, what do you want less of? Because it's still, the vision of this is still taking shape. Just really quickly, since I have it live up here, I want to show you what some of the tools are that hopefully will be helpful to equip you, because that is the goal of this. Hopefully this won't get me in too much trouble. My personal philosophy of ministry is that the magic of ministry happens on the congregational level. And I see synods and churchwide and all these other things as means to the end of helping make that magic happen. And you're also the innovation labs. You're the ones that are going to experiment. You are the ones that are going to come up with the practices of what this brave new church looks like. But I and we as a synod can help create, just like a chemical reaction, create the right circumstances and maybe catalyze that change happening in the work that you do. And that's why I really hope that this can be a two-way conversation, both through the website and some of the tools, but also you can always reach out directly to me as the elders of your people to share how this is helpful or not. So there is on this page several elements. On the About page, it tells you a little bit more about what the vision of Brave New Church is and how it's hopefully going to help us engage these questions and conversations in a new age. There's a blog, which you can subscribe to. The subscription thing automatically pops up there, and you just pop in your email address, and you'll get the blogs every time a new one is posted. The blog is intended to be a diversity of voices, both clergy and lay, from across the synod or even beyond, people that have interesting perspectives or ways to things to add to this conversation. So right now there's only 3 or 4 posts up on the blog. 3 of them are by me, 1 of them is by a layperson, but I'm also looking for people that have something to say. If you're doing an interesting, innovative, or different ministry in your congregation, or you know someone who is, or you have a really great story that illustrates any of this, or even the adaptive challenge piece of it, I'm looking for people to write content for the blog, because I think the more we can share, the less we all have to make the same mistakes as one another. That's really the philosophy of this as well. Additionally, there's a podcast that the goal for both the blog and the podcast is that a post or an episode will post every week, hopefully eventually every Monday of every week. And the podcast, there's only a couple episodes of it so far. One reflects back on Abraham's promise or God's promise to Abraham, that I will make of you a great nation. Talks about that whole notion of how do we even talk about greatness in this time and age that we're situated in. Which, by the way, just in general, taboo or off-limit areas to any of what you do as a church anymore. That doesn't fly with young people. So, whether it's politics or whether it's this or whether it's that, not partisanship, but people are looking for authentic dialogue where people that disagree can actually talk to each other, because that's the sort of thing you can't find anywhere else except the church anymore. There's a couple posts uploaded so far on the podcast, including a brief conversation with Rich Mulheim, who was here last week talking about cross-generational ministry. That is on iTunes. You can subscribe to it on iTunes. You'll get the episodes showing up on your phone or whatever you listen to podcasts to on. And if you don't know how to find podcasts, I can help you, or so can Google. The vision for the podcast as well is that I will have conversations, again, with people doing interesting, innovative, or different things throughout our synod and beyond, so that we can hear those stories, we can share those best practices, we can learn about those bright spots, and we don't all have to fail separately, but we can succeed or fail together from time to time. The community page is a page of forums, which I'm hoping will eventually develop into a place where resources and ideas can be shared and dialogued upon amongst people, in addition to the Facebook page in a more intentional way. And so it's sorted into various areas. You can see that. One is for conversations on whatever the podcast is about. One of the areas is church leadership and planning, young adults in the church, and also cross-generational or intergenerational ministry, which we had a great event last week here in this room with about 200 people from churches across the synod and beyond about what that means and what that looks like. And while I am not going to talk at too much length about that right now, it is one of those models that churches are case studying, are experimenting with, and developing ways of doing ministry with a totally different model than our programmatic 20th century model that connects with and impacts people in a 21st century postmodern age across the generations. Particularly, it connects with people because it's a relationship-first approach to ministry. And if you're doing anything new in your congregation, don't think program, don't think curriculum, don't look for the list of the to-do list, whether it's from Churchwide or us. If you get a communications to-do list, or throw it away, really, because while that can help build capacity, contextuality is so deeply ingrained in this postmodern age that we live in that unless something is authentic and involves authentic relationship, where people can really be in community with one another, it is not something that people have time for, because we're overprogrammed, we're overstimulated, we're over-messaged at. We see a million ads bombard us every day, every moment, and people cut through that very quickly unless they know that there's actually some depth there. So finally, I just want to lift up, there's also a resources page. This already has some great content on it, but this is what I'm hoping will really become the clearinghouse for some of those best practices as they are developed, as they can get kind of coalesced a little bit and get some structure around them so that we can learn from one another and share those things. So just currently on there's a bunch of links to great resources for individuals that are looking to deepen their spirituality in a postmodern world, and that's on the left side of the page there. And then on the right side, there's a series of resources for congregations. The first one at the top is a presentation that, in addition to some of the statistical data that I shared this morning, it really parallels in a deeper way how some of the cultural shifts we've experienced in the last 50 years and are in the midst of now parallel the time of Martin Luther and the Reformation in a way that is just eerie. It really is. And we can learn so much from how Luther and the church navigated these changes in the time of the Reformation by looking at what some of their solutions were to some very similar problems. There's also other resources there on the right side of the page. I won't get into all of it. I encourage you to poke around and look at it. They're not all from the Lutheran sources. None of them are from ELCA Churchwide at this point, because the point is simply to find what's effective, latch onto it, and share it. Because we're in that Apollo 13, all hands on deck, here's what we have to work with phase in the church today. And again, that can be a thing filled with great hope rather than despair, but only if we understand that we are called to play a very exciting role in what God is doing in the world today and tomorrow. So thank you for that. I would love to share more about it, but I'm already over time. So last thing I just point out, though, at the bottom of that resources page, there are some preliminary resources for congregational visioning as well that I encourage you to check out. I'm hoping to grow that greatly as we develop more of those resources as a synod. Thank you.